I'm Dr. Patrick Andersen. In just a few minutes, we're going to be talking about something that affects just about everyone's life and health. The topic this week on Maximize Living is stress. We're going to describe many of life's stressors, some of which may be all too familiar with you. It seems like life changes at an ever-increasing rate, bringing with it more work and less time to do it in. Stress just seems to relentlessly build in today's society. We're going to present our top 10 stress busters. These stress busters will help you tone down the stress of life so you can have more energy and live your life to its fullest. I think you'll agree that you have more control over stress than you may think. Join co-host Stacie Hanson and myself for our Stress Buster show coming up next. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. We're talking about stress and everyday stresses that we have so bad, it seems like, in today's world. Do you think that it's gotten worse over the years, stress-wise?
You know, I really do. You know, it started out, Paleolithic man. We spent 5,000 years hunting and gathering with a spear, and the skill set you needed to learn was how to throw a spear farther and aim better. Then we spent about 4,000 years with a bow and arrow. And the skill was to get better with that, hunter-gatherer. And then about 2,000 years agriculturally to raise maize, but someone born in 1900 saw the advent of radio, television, airplanes, nuclear weapons, 2 world wars, cell phones, the internet, email, and
social media.
There's just so many things that we get exposed to that it creates stress to us. It's hard to have that time like we used to have.
Do you think everybody's stressed, or do you think there's some oasis of calm out there? How many people are affected?
Well, in one study, 75% of people had great stress at least once in a week, and that's up about 20% in the last 20 years.
So what happens then to your body as you start activating this fight or flight?
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Well, you see, our body's still kind of like when we were Paleolithic man with a saber-toothed tiger at the watering hole. Here we're getting a drink and a saber-toothed tiger shows up. Our bodies go into fight or flight, where you're going to fight the saber-toothed tiger, which probably wouldn't be very smart.
No.
Or we're going to flight. We're going to try to get out of there. So the body then raises cortisol levels. It shunts blood to your muscles away from your brain so you lose your long-term memory. And it still stops digestion. So we're shunting all our resources to get away from that tiger. Here's the problem. When we're under life's stressors today, our bodies still react that way, affecting our digestion, affecting our memories. And we're creating a lot of muscular tension, and that's not a healthy mechanism.
And how do you know if you're stressed? I mean, obviously, if it's extreme stress, but sometimes I think that we just run on this constant level of stress. How do you know if it's really affecting you?
Well, there's certain signs and symptoms when you're stressed. You'll feel a heightened tension, your blood pressure may go up, you may be more irritable. You may not sleep well, you have difficulty. Your general joy in life may go down. Appetite may change, either less appetite or more appetite, can happen either way. Relationships problems. For women, they have changes in their cycle, monthly cycle. Headaches could start happening. You feel like giving up. There could be a change in your libido or sex drive. Fatigue. Susceptibility to infection, you're getting sick all the time, that's a sign of stress. And mood changes. So really a lot goes on with stress.
And it kind of sounds like, we've talked about before some brain disorders on the show, it sounds like that stress can almost trigger some of that for people, like they're getting mood changes and irritability.
Exactly, stress is one of the triggers for brain health issues, so we want to keep that at bay.
Exactly. It's very important. So we're going to talk next about how to keep your stress lower. And welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. So we're talking about life stresses today. What are some of the stresses that people have? We talked a little bit about some of them. Social media, I think, gives people a lot of anxiety.
It really does. It actually causes depression too. The more social media you do, the more depression you have, because you're comparing and rating yourself.
It's just a slippery slope.
But there's a lot of life stressors, and many of these may seem familiar to you, so you might want to write them down if you have one of these. Work stress, loss of sleep, relationship stress. Anyone have any relationship stress? Financial stress, difficulty with children, difficulty with aging parents, poor health of family members, public speaking. That's a big one for a lot of people. Death, worrying about death, taxes, divorce, job loss, crowded places. Well, there's a huge amount. A diet rich in caffeine, sugar, and junk foods also stress us.
So that's a lot of stuff, and some of them you can't escape. Death and taxes, like they say. So what are some of the things that people can do to kind of manage? Like, we've talked a little bit about managing stress before. What's one of a huge one that you could say would make the biggest difference?
It's the one in stress research. One of the biggest things that's come out is that if you're in control of the situation, it's much less stress. Let's say my boss would tell me I have to get this done and that done, or he's going to write me up, and you have to stay till you get it done. I would be pretty stressed about that. But if I decided on my own I was going to stay later because I just want to get this project done, there's the same amount of work gets done, but there's a complete difference in the amount of stress. So if you have control, that makes a huge difference. But that brings up another point. What I found universally is people with a strong faith in God, let go and let God. When they have that faith, they look at problems as something that is supposed to grow them. I guess I have to work my way through that for some reason. I don't understand it, but I know I'm going to grow from it. And so the people of faith often have less stress because they look at life differently. And it would be hard to talk about stress without noticing that difference in those people.
The letting go, as you said. So is kind of just like changing your mindset too. Like you said, if you have control, because sometimes you don't. Sometimes your boss really does ask you to do this huge project. Can you just choose to, in your mind, say, I'm going to choose to get this done? Or how would you handle that?
Yeah, exactly. Just try this too will pass is a good way. And well, he's probably right, or she's probably right. I got to get this done, and I know I can do it, and I'm not going to sweat over it. I'll get it done. No problem.
So you have some top stress busters,
yes.
You said. What are some of those?
Well, one of them is guard your mind share. Guard your mind share. What do you do with your time? Who do you talk with? What are you listening to? What are you reading? Who do you hang around with? So when you do hang around with smarter people and happier people, that rubs off on you. And what you read rubs off on you. So even what you say, whenever you say the words I am, be careful what you say after them, because you're programming your brain. That's who you are. You are who you say you are, just like you are what you eat. So that's where I get concerned with people who cuss a lot. I always say people who cuss a lot are cussy people, because they just kind of are on edge and upset all the time.
That's true.
So when you say words that are negative, it really reflects back on you. And so interestingly enough, people who give compliments, or compliment people naturally, they themselves feel complimented. So it's one of the best things you can do to reduce stress. It's just be complimentary to other people, and your life looks better.
Yeah, and you just sort of keep it going. And two, talking about like be careful what you say after I am, because people have sometimes a negative self-talk internally that they're not saying verbally. They say things to themselves that they would never say to anyone else. And sometimes I've read that it's best that people just start writing those things down or saying them out loud, and you start to realize, what are you saying to yourself?
Exactly. Internal talk, most people have problems with internal self-talk. It is worse if you verbalize it. So that's the next level of bringing it into more reality.
So you don't want to do that.
You don't want to
write it down.
Yeah, I would just try to minimize the self-talk and replace it with something more positive. Saying something that you are doing, what's great about today, and answer questions like that.
Definitely good to be positive. Well, we have more top stress busters right after this. And welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. We're talking about ways to reduce your stress. The next one is paying it forward.
Yeah, that's a good one. Whenever you do something for someone else, you feel good. There was a saying that I really have kept as one of my important sayings, is there's no greater joy than the selfless service of others. You know, and if you think about that, whenever you do for others, you're really happy. But if you're totally self-absorbed, focused on yourself, that's when the unhappiness creeps in. And so paying it forward, doing something for others, I really believe makes a big difference. Another point is Emerson's law of compensation. Ralph Waldo Emerson, a famous literary person,
yeah.
He wrote something called the law of compensation. And he says, whatever you do comes back to you 3 times. So if I'm going to do some good stuff for people, it'll come back to me 3 times. If I do some lousy stuff, it's coming back on me. So it's pretty much a great equalizer in your efforts when you really understand that law of compensation principle. You want to just do good.
I believe that's true too, and that's why I think people don't need to focus on revenge too, because it's going to take care of itself.
Yeah, you know that one saying, who drinks a cup of poison and expects someone else to get sick. It's you that gets sick when you do those things.
Now, what about thinking you have to do everything yourself?
Yeah. You know, many people, it's nice to be self-sufficient and take care of things, but many people have a professional job and it's hard to do everything. And one of the big stressors is to go home and fix everything in the house and to be a car mechanic and good at everything. And it just doesn't work that way. So I like the saying, trust your professionals. If you don't trust your professional, find a new one. So let your professional be what they're best at, and you be what you're best at, and don't try to do everything. Delegate some of the things in your life, because you really can't be excellent at everything. I'm not going to fix my computer very well, let's say that.
I like this. I feel freed already, because I think subconsciously I'm one of those people that thought that I feel like you've given me permission now to just trust my professional. What about goal setting on the things that you do want to improve yourself on?
Yeah, that's huge. You know, the mind on goal has a completely different chemistry. You literally see people light up when they start thinking about the possibility, I could do that. And the principle is that nature abhors avoid. So if we don't put a good goal in or something positive, the life stressors will jump in there and grab our mind share. So we take charge of it by having goals, and we feel productive. We are designed to be goal-striving organisms.
And that's a beautiful thing, and I think that's what the human race is meant to do, to just keep on trying to improve.
In any area of life. So the goals could be, generally we recommend physical goals, mental goals, relationship goals, financial goals, spiritual goals, and work on each one of those and then chunk them down into smaller bites and then celebrate every little step you make, because the celebration is part of it.
Yes, and making sure that you're referring back to them often and keeping track and not just setting a goal on New Year's Eve and then
it's gone in 3 days later. But if you just simply write down something like a dream list, I love to do this about once a quarter, you write for 3 minutes, you dream about anything you just absolutely love. Like, I want a 747 and I'm gonna fly around taking care of dignitaries at every country. It's gonna be an equipped chiropractic clinic. Pretty big idea. But imagine just making all kinds of ideas on a dream list like that you want. And what's fascinating is, if you look at that years later, you might be surprised at the number of things you actually achieved or came close to. But dreaming opens up possibilities, and it keeps stress down.
It's so powerful too, to just envision what you want. And just talking a little bit about getting organized, how that can help you too.
Well, you bet. Compartmentalize is really healthy for people. There's so many different categories of life that when you compartmentalize and just put something in a section, it's kind of organizing. So many people have a dirty, messy house, a messy desk, and they probably have a messy mind. So by getting organized physically, it helps you get organized mentally, and it helps you compartmentalize things. So really, you can have problems in one area of your life, but you say, I'm going to do everything I can about this for an hour. And once I've done everything I can't do anything else, I'm going to stop. That's all I'm going to do today. That's enough. And it actually reduces stress because you've done everything you can. There's nothing more you can do. And you compartmentalized it so you can move on.
And I think it's too comes back to we're talking about taking control and feeling control over what you're doing, and at least you know that this is your to-do list and this is what you're set out to do.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned to-do lists, and so many people, we want to do the most urgent thing, most important thing first, but people don't generally do that, and they do the least important thing, the least urgent thing first, because maybe that's what they feel like doing. But often much better stress reduction if you do what's most important, most urgent first. And I like to do the small things first, and then you get momentum to tackle the big ones.
Because you can cross a lot off.
Yeah.
Well, that's great information. We have more on tackling your stress right after this. Welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. We're talking about stress today and ways that you can manage it. We've talked a lot about how food can help you. Can food help with stress as well?
Yeah, well, if you eat sugar, you'll typically raise your stress level. If you eat junk food, the toxins just upset your digestive tract and you won't sleep well. You'll be more irritable with poor quality foods. Wrong oils will affect your overall digestive system and stress as well. So it makes a big difference on what you eat.
What about meditation? You hear a lot about more and more people are starting to do this, and it's got great benefits.
That's interesting because I know one person who meditated a lot. I think she meditated like 4 hours a day. She didn't get anything else done, but she was very calm. So there's a way to do it. It doesn't take a long time. So there's lots of different ways of meditating. It does not have to be difficult. One simple way is to just get into a quiet place and close your eyes and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth and clear your mind. And just do that for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And just try not to have any racing thoughts. Try to let all those 100 ping pong balls stop bouncing around for a minute. And what it does when you meditate, it helps you get alpha waves in your brain, the predominant alpha waves. So it's much lower stress. It's almost like sleep. I actually think people who meditate could probably use that to replace some of their sleep.
And I imagine that that's difficult at first to stop those racing thoughts. It's something you probably just get better at continually.
It's a learned trait.
And what about the stressor of just the trouble with relationships in your life?
Oh, that's a huge thing. Relationships, with family members, with spouses, with kids. Relationships is a huge stress. So we want to think about who have we not forgiven in our lives from past relationships, and do things in such a way that we forget some of those things, compartmentalize it.
Yeah, so there's a lot that you can do yourself. You may not have control over other people, but you can choose to forgive, but maybe not forget.
Well, a little bit of both is probably a good idea. And avoid those people who are just toxic. There are some people who just seem toxic, and best to just accept them, forgive them, and then move on. But keep in mind, many times when you have a heated discussion or an argument with someone, many people really believe in what they're saying. They just have different life experiences. So when you look at someone's that way, it helps you understand them better. And so many times those arguments settle down. Well, from your perspective, I see that's how you would feel. So it's very helpful. One of the best things in relationships is to simply validate that person. You don't want to say, well, you don't have a clue in what you're talking about. You don't have no idea what you're saying. You really want to say, well, I can understand that that's how you feel. And just validating people is hugely reducing stress in your relationships.
Mm-hmm. And that may cool any argument you might be having right then.
Yeah.
And just lastly, really quickly, what about adjustments? We talk about adjustments a lot. Can that help with stress as well?
It really does. The studies are fascinating on this. Your cortisol level goes down. The dopamine feel-good hormone goes up. There's 20 to 45% better brain blood flow to the brain if you have moderate to severe neck pain when you get an adjustment. So it makes a significant difference in health.
So there's a lot you can do to reduce your stress. Stay with us.
The easiest way to live fully and with stress under control is to make the 5 essentials of health and wellness part of your daily lifestyle. These 5 essentials are maximize mind, maximize nerve supply, maximize quality nutrition, maximize oxygen and lean muscle, and minimize toxins. Our bodies are made incredibly well. In fact, the human body is absolutely amazing. Think about this. Your body makes 1 million cells a second out of the food you eat. 200 different kinds of cells are made, and your body innately knows just where to put each one of them. Your heart beats 100,000 times a day, and your brain sends and receives 3 trillion signals a second to command and control all healing and function of your body. Life's structural and mental stresses shift our spines out of proper alignment, and that interferes with your nervous system, leading to dysfunction and disease. If this makes sense to you and you'd like to get started on the road to better health, call 608-833-1282 today for an appointment. You'll be glad you did. For Maximize Living, I'm Dr. Patrick Andersen. Until next week, live well.